About to talk the media, and the man we've used for just about the whole year on The Informer has been Steve Carey, media professional, long-time news director at a number of different channels. I can remember ABC, was it Channel 7?
I was a reporter for everywhere but Channel 10, for which I was grateful.
I'm not going to come on back and say anything about those organisations because they each played a role in our makeup. They each had a hand in what we did and how we saw the business over the last, for me, 45 years.
Yeah.
For you, how many years?
40.
My goodness. So what have we discovered? Looking back now, it's almost Christmas 2020. What have we made of the last year?
Well, it's been an extraordinary year, hasn't it? And we say that every year, but this year has been one out of the box. I mean, who would have believed, outside of world wars and major events, like you remember 9/11, we've touched on that before. COVID has just smashed that. I mean, and it continues to. I can't remember a time in the news cycle where every single night of every single bulletin, radio, papers, front page news was COVID or something related to COVID. And as I said, that created real challenges for the media, how they disseminated that information, how they collected that information. And then you've got the conspiracy theorists, George. It's continuing today. Now we've got COVID vaccines, and I've heard on the radio on the way in, the number of people saying that, oh, we're throwing the elderly under a bus because they're going to be vaccinated first, rather than, 10 years ago you would have said, we have to protect the elderly and the frail. Now we're saying, the conspiracy theorists are saying, no, we don't know enough about the vaccine. That's ridiculous. We need more testing. And there's an argument for that. But what's happened this year is, for me, I've never seen so many conspiracy theories coming out on such a number of things. And you see that as well playing out in the US presidential election, where Trump is still saying he was robbed, still saying that there was widespread voter fraud. And even people that he put on the judicial committees himself didn't take that view. So it's been an extraordinary year.
Could it be that we haven't lived through a world war? Had we lived through a world war and seen how the news gathering organisations would have covered that extreme
That'd be totally
exercise.
different now, George.
But it would have been a constant in our heads.
No. How can you say that, mate? I mean, we've talked about too, you are embedded in every part of this COVID story. Every single scintilla of it. We've got access inside hospitals. We've got everything. But what's happened is there's a partisan approach to it. You're either vehemently for what the government's doing, or you're vehemently against. You either stand with Dan or you don't stand with Dan. What we had during World Wars, by and large, was a very partisan approach where, depending on what side you were on, the journalists reflected that. This time, it's very much like the Vietnam War, which was the first war really that was played out in real time in our living rooms. We were able to watch. COVID's the same. We've seen horrific vision from inside hospitals in Italy.
Yes.
We've seen people literally dying in front of our eyes on some channels.
And the death toll from America, from Britain, has been extraordinary.
Absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah.
And we have to say, in Australia, you have to give credit, no matter what side of the fence you're on, and you and I have talked about the Andrews government and how that was played out.
Correct.
Take the hotel quarantine out of it. By and large, we've been protected. You look at overseas, wow, very different story. And yet the media's role in that is still intrinsically embedded in what we do and what we say and how we perceive how we're going. So some people would say in Australia, we stuffed up. We got it wrong because we even had, hundreds. Whereas, as you say, in America, 300,000 dead, 2,500 every second there are people dropping.
We're talking about vast populations and vast numbers, and Australians, a great many of them, just don't grasp that at all. No. Even with the advent of all the technology and all the numbers and the accessibility, we still don't grasp it.
So that's what I'm saying. You've got to compare apples with apples. Technology has broken the mould, it's smashed it. And God knows where we're going to end up in the next year, 2 years with convergence.
So will the news cycle be changing, do you think?
The news cycle's already changing, and what we're going to see, I'll tell you now, your viewers already, we're going to see less of COVID here now. The cycle's already starting to change. Yes, we'll still see the stories about the vaccine, we'll see other stuff, unless there is a breakout event in Australia where there's a third wave and we're really in trouble. The cycle is going to do this. We're going to see natural event disaster television. We're already seeing that up.
We saw the year start with bushfires.
We started the year with bushfires. We saw a whole stack of. We saw drought. We saw everything. It's already starting to happen. The cycle this week, certainly in the eastern seaboard from Sydney up to Brisbane, that's about floods, Byron Bay being wiped out. Now we're coming into the cycle where we're looking now at the heat. We've had a few days of hot weather in Melbourne, so our mind and our attention and that of the media is rightly turning to, are we prepared for bushfire season? Are we ready for a natural disaster? So that's how the cycle changes, and that's what people need to be a little bit attuned to. You can still get your information, but that information's going to slightly change, I think.
Have we seen the end of Trump?
No, we haven't seen the end of
Trump story.
The Trump story will continue to roll on and provide fodder for a lot of people, both here and across the world. I mean, yes, Biden has been announced by the Electoral College Commission. He's been anointed, so that's done and dusted. But Trump hasn't given approval for it himself. So we're going to see a lot more headlines relating to Donald Trump.
And just as we see the year out, we see China playing a bigger and bigger and bigger voice in our news cycle. What do you make of that?
I make that jingoism in Australia is going to become more to the fore. Nobody likes a bully. Nobody likes an international bully. Australians have a rich history of pushing back against that. I think Morrison has noted that the population as a whole is probably going to be supportive of that stand of, hey, a little bit more isolationist in some things, understanding that we have trade issues. And we're already seeing a push that's forming new alliances. So let's watch how that plays out. But what I would say is next year will bring a rich tapestry of stories, as it does every year. And I commend all the journalists, and I commend TheInformer and everybody else who keeps trying to do the right thing and putting that information out in a way that people can understand.
Steve Carey, you've been a delight from day one, and we look forward to seeing you in 2021, and to you and yours a very safe Christmas and a prosperous 2021. Steve Carey, who's been a part of TheInformer from almost day one. It's been most interesting to watch his perspective and his insight, and give us an opportunity to break down some of the big stories and give us a chance to digest them in a very palatable way. Steve Carey, thank you.
Thanks a lot.